Lynn Knox sits comfortably in her firefighter overalls and a plain white tank. The fire chief is a small woman with a soft face, an easy smile, and arms of corded muscle. She has the lazy confidence of someone twice her size. We sit in her fire station, where behind her lies a corkboard overflowing with pictures and letters. Lynn gives me a small tour of the board before our interview. She points to the thank you letters from children and their cats, crude drawings of firemen fighting demons made of flame, and one picture of Lynn handing a soot-covered baby to a crying mother.
Ah, you found it. That's Sammy. Found his crib trapped under a burning beam. Got there just in time. His mom is so sweet. She sends me a fruit basket every time he does, well, anything, really. First steps, first words, first time he went to the bathroom by himself. Oof. Always with a little note that reads, "All because of you." I don't know about that, but this photo is definitely my favorite.
I can see why.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna grab a beer. You want one? You want a beer?
No, thank you.
Oh, duh, you're working. I gotta say, I was surprised when you asked to speak with me. Thought kind of podcast you're doing, you'd be looking for, I don't know, the more special stories.
Your story isn't special?
Well, to me it is, but it's nothing to write home about. You gonna sit, or is this a standing interview, or?
Right, sorry.
So, never done one of these before. Ooh, I don't know what I'm doing. Where do we start?
Let's start at the beginning. Where were you on B-Day?
I was in my bedroom wearing my costume.
Your costume?
Yup. I was 7 when Beca blew, and for my entire life, all I ever wanted to be was a superhero. So I had this costume, right? This horrible urine-colored yellow onesie with a towel tied around my neck as a cape. I thought I looked very impressive, but, well, you can judge for yourself.
Lynn hands me a photo of a skinny, freckled girl wearing a food-stained onesie and a tattered towel. The sun beams behind her as she strikes a pose, hands on hips, her chin skyward, her cape flapping in the breeze. It is both impressive and adorable. Looks like a normal kid to me.
Yeah, well, what the photo doesn't show is my family. Mom was standing just off frame holding a fan. It was the only way to get my cape to flap like that. My dad was taking the picture and awkwardly apologizing to anyone who passed by. And my sister Chloe was sitting in our apartment window calling me names.
Was that hard for you?
Chloe? Not at first. I mean, that's what sisters are for, right? Help you build your armor for when you really need it. But the pose helped me block her out. Made me feel strong, invincible, like a freaking superhero.
Did you have a name?
Oh, yes. Sunshine Girl. The lone light in the dark night. Chloe called me Piss Stain Girl, which didn't have the same ring, but I ignored her. I had the name, I had the costume, and I had the right attitude.
All you needed was the powers.
Yeah, it killed me I didn't have powers. I knew I couldn't be a hero if I wasn't special, and the only way to be special was to have powers. But I had a mission. I was obsessed. I was going to be Sunshine Girl, no matter what. I tried everything. I let spiders crawl on my hand, hoping they would bite me, snuck into factories, hoping to fall into some unknown substance, and ran towards every superhero battle I could, praying for that fateful accident that would give me what I wanted. I was about to volunteer myself for medical testing when my dad put a stop to it. He grounded me for a month and threw my costume in the trash. I heard him fighting with my mom one night. He had humored this, quote, superhero thing long enough. It was time for me to grow up. It was time that they had a normal daughter. Quietly, my mom agreed. Apparently, the days of her holding the fan were over when my dad said so.
How did you take that?
Shrugged it off, mostly. It's easy to turn your parents into the villains of your own origin story. So that night, I snuck out and rescued my filthy costume from the dumpster. I told myself a hero overcame all obstacles, and it didn't matter that I had no friends or that adults looked at me funny or that my sister was mean to me. None of it mattered, because I was going to be a hero, no matter what. But I didn't consider my greatest villain of all, my older sister, Chloe.
What happened?
Well, it was the summer before first grade. I remember it so clearly, and I was just about to join Chloe at her elementary school, something she was not very excited about. She had worked herself into a kind of queen bee. Everyone treated her with a mix of fear and respect that wouldn't survive if they met her weird pajama-wearing little sister. Chloe saw how helpless my parents were against my crazies, as she called it. So she decided to take matters into her own hands. One day, she skipped out of school early and snuck into my room to find dirt. She found my newsreel.
Your newsreel?
Yeah, you remember. News stations would have these supercuts of Night Warden doing cool shit. They'd put some Paul Simon over it, make everyone look super heroic. I thought you had to have one to be a real superhero.
And you made one.
There is no need to fear. Sunshine Girl is here. Oh, that sounded so bad. Okay, let me go again. Dad, keep it going. Okay. There's no need to fear. Sunshine Girl is here. Hell yeah, I made one. I had it all planned out. I set up my dad's old video camera in the park. Okay. Then I placed my cat, Rosie, in a tree. The plan was to dash on screen, strike a pose, and declare in my deepest, most heroic voice, "There's no need to fear. Sunshine Girl is here."
Let me guess, it didn't work out.
You could say that. I tried to climb the tree, but fell on my ass. My upper body strength was for shit back then. Rosie was so frightened she actually climbed to a higher branch. I had to call my dad to help get her down. My first glorious outing as a superhero, all caught on camera. But it didn't matter. All superheroes suffer defeat, only to bounce back. I stuffed the tape under my bed and started making plans for the next one. I didn't even notice when it went missing. But then one day, I came home and heard laughter in the living room. I heard my own voice. I knew what was happening, but couldn't stop myself from entering the room. There was Chloe, surrounded by her friends, imitating my heroic pose as my reel played in the background. Her friends were crying with laughter. When they noticed me, an awkward silence fell over the room. Then Chloe mimicked falling out of a tree, and they just broke down. I ran, covering my face, trying to hide my tears. Superheroes didn't cry, but I did. I slammed my door, locking it behind me. I could still hear their laughter sneaking its way under my door, through my opened windows, and up through the floor. I felt trapped, powerless, surrounded by a villain I couldn't defeat, couldn't even fight. I turned and found my costume hanging neatly in my closet. I hated it. Hated everything that it stood for. Hated the way it reminded me of what I could never be. I ripped it down and tried to tear it apart with my bare hands, but I wasn't strong enough. I grabbed some scissors and cut and hacked at my beautiful costume. It came apart easily. It was pretty cheap material in the end. When I was done, I sat on the floor and cried amidst an unwashed towel and a torn-up onesie. I stayed there all afternoon. My parents tried to speak to me through my locked door, but I didn't respond. I heard my sister's friends leave and my parents yell at her. Chloe knocked to give me a half-hearted apology, but again, I didn't say anything. Instead, I tied the cut-up towel around my neck and stood. I struck the pose, chin skyward, hands on hips, and tried to feel this confidence that the pose always gave me. But I didn't feel like a hero. I felt like a stupid little girl with a dirty towel tied around her neck. I wanted to disappear. I wanted Chloe to die. I wanted to never have put the stupid costume on in the first place. I wanted everything I couldn't have. But then B-Day hit. and I got everything I ever wanted. I had never heard anything like it before. Never heard anything like it since, to be honest. I followed the sound to my window and saw the shockwave coming right for me. It looked like a tidal wave, a giant wall of pink dust consuming everything in its path. It was moving so fast it hit my house before I could react. My window exploded. The dust picked me up and threw me against the wall. Shards of glass shot everywhere, slicing through me as if I were paper. I crumpled to the ground, blood pouring out of me. I heard Dad charging up the stairs, throwing his weight against my locked door. I couldn't remember why I had locked it. I couldn't think. Blood loss was clouding my mind. Dad's foot crashed through the door, splintering the wood, but the lock held strong. He looked through the hole, his eyes wild and afraid. Then he choked, his mouth gasping for air. His hands flew to his throat and he fell to the ground and out of sight. A single thought penetrated my mind. My dad is dying. He needs me. The fog retreated. The pain was still there, but the wounds had stopped bleeding. I stood up. The thought kept repeating itself, pounding in my head. My dad is dying. He needs me. I could see him through the hole in the door. He was convulsing, his hands clutching his throat as if he were trying to choke himself. His jerking slowed and then stopped. His hands fell away to reveal gills all down his neck, just like a fish. They were flapping desperately back and forth. I pulled on the door, but the handle was broken. It wouldn't unlock. I couldn't get to him. My dad was going to die. I stopped thinking. I grasped the door handle and pulled. My tiny arm strained, but it didn't budge. So I placed my foot on the wall for a little extra leverage and pulled again, harder. And strength like I had never known came from somewhere, tearing the door completely off its hinges. Through the shower of splinters, I could see my dad. His face purple, his lips gasping madly for air. He didn't have a lot of time. I grabbed him by the shirt and pulled. He was so light, like a pillow. I dragged my 250-pound father down the hall towards our fish tank. Then I hoisted him over my shoulders and dumped him fully into the water. Bubbles erupted from his mouth, his new gills greedily drinking in air, and finally, he took a breath. He smiled at me, but I was already turning. The apartment was filling with smoke. It billowed down the hallway. With a last look at my father, I charged down the stairs and into the kitchen. It was on fire. Flames erupted from a small, dark shape huddled by the fridge. It took me a moment to realize it was my mother. I didn't think. I ran to the sink, opened the cupboard underneath, grabbed a pipe, and yanked. It came apart like it was made of Legos. A jet of water shot into the kitchen, quenching the fire and nearly drowning my mother. It took a moment for the flames to die. Mom was curled up in the corner, her clothes and hair burned away, but unhurt. I was about to run to her when I heard a scream from Chloe's room. I was running again, sprinting past my mother, up the stairs, past my father's fish tank, and into my sister's room. It was empty. Chloe was nowhere to be seen. For one mad moment, I thought she had turned invisible. But then she screamed again. It came from outside her window. I ran to the window and looked down. Chloe wasn't there. I heard cursing above me and looked up. Chloe floated above me. She was clutching her bedroom curtain like it was the only thing anchoring her to the ground, which I realized quickly it was. If Chloe let go, she would float up and up and up until there was nowhere else to go. I tried to grab the curtain, but it was out of my reach. I couldn't get to her. Chloe was swearing at me to get her down, but I didn't know how. Then I noticed she was floating 3 feet below our upstairs neighbor's window. I sprinted from her room, grabbing her bedsheet as I went. I charged out my apartment door, up the stairs, and into the hallway. I found my neighbor's apartment easily enough. Locked? No problem. A well-placed kick ripped the door off of its hinges. I ran through our neighbor's living room, barely noticing him melting into green gelatinous sludge on his couch. I heard a scream and threw the windows open. Chloe's feet were bobbing just out of reach. I tried to grab her anyway, but she was too far. I called for her to let go, that I would catch her, but she was hysterical. I didn't have any time. I was about to lose her. There was only one way to get her down. It was why I had brought the bedsheet, but we were 6 stories up with nothing but thin air between us and pavement. I didn't think about it. I jumped. For a moment, I flew through the air, my cape flapping behind me, the sun beaming down. Then I hit her, rocking her grip free of the curtain. She struggled with me, but for the first time in our lives, I was stronger. I gripped her tightly, wrapping her in the sheet. Then, using her as a kind of parachute, I let our combined weights bear us softly to the ground, Chloe cursing me the whole way down. We landed lightly. I used the sheet to pull her close. She had stopped struggling. I let myself breathe. They were safe. Everyone was safe. Then I looked up and noticed the world around me. It was burning. Bodies floated into the sky by the hundreds. A cloud of orange gas was melting a nearby apartment building. Cars, buses, and bicycles crashed around me, and a wolf-like creature crouched on the roof of our local diner and howled skyward. All around me, people were screaming, bleeding, and dying. They needed help. I tied my sister down in our lobby and ran back outside. I placed both hands on my hips, raised my chin, and let my cape flap in the breeze. Someone screamed, and I didn't think about it. I ran to help.
What happened to your family?
Well, Mom and Dad split about 15 years back. He lives in Lake Huron. Found a lady in a real good school up there. They swim around in packs, like minnows. I sometimes take a sailboat out to see him. I've always been too scared to ask if his wife lays eggs. Mom beat breast cancer and remarried. He's a bit of a stiff, but seems to make her happy, which is all that matters. Chloe is an accountant. Makes more money than I do and always likes reminding me. But it's pretty normal in the end. Pretty normal.
This has been a production of the Fool's Gallery Podcast Network. Today's episode was written and directed by Keenan Ellis, produced, recorded, mixed, and mastered by Joseph Freeman at Freeman Recordings, and starred Leonard and Keenan Ellis. Theme composed by Alexander Taylor. If you enjoyed our podcast, please subscribe, rate, and review us online. You can also check us out on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and of course our website, foolsgallery.com. Lastly, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/foolsgallery. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time for the Phone Booth Episode 2, H2O.